What's good, Kick and Bass gang? Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make some of these advanced Ableton racks that I've been doing in a lot of these the social media stuff recently, because it's not worth having them if you don't know how to make them. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how to set these things up. Alright, first things first, we're going to do this Sidechain Reverb Rack. So if we listen... So as you could hear, the reverb ducks out of the way when the sound is playing, and this is super useful for filling up the space in between notes. So let's go ahead and duplicate this, and then I'll show you guys how to make it from scratch. So just without anything, we have... And first things first, we're going to need that reverb. So let's grab this. And essentially, we're going to set it up like a send. So to do that, we need to Command G to group it, and then we're going to duplicate the chain, and then call the top one dry, and the bottom one wet. And then on the dry one, we're going to delete this reverb. And then on the wet one, we're going to turn this all the way up, and then we're going to go for a compressor up here and set this after the reverb. And then what we're going to do is going to turn the ratio up just so it ducks out entirely, and then we're going to keep these pretty standard. And let's go ahead and rename this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sidechain audio from Sidechain Reverb Rack 2, and then pre-effects. This step is super important because you don't want, if you have stuff going on after Serum, you don't want it to take that signal. You want just straight out of Serum. So now we could see the reverb is ducking just right, just that much, but we're going to take this all the way down. So when, and then what we want to do is we're going to map this dry wet to whatever macro you want, just so we could choose the amount of ducking. And then from here, I'm just going to map out some of the key parameters on the reverb that I'd want to mess with. So size is just the size of the room, reverb decay, and then let's do, you could do whatever you want, but I'm just going to do some simple ones. So I'm just going to do the low cut on the filter to macro 5, the high cut on 6, and then we'll do just, and now we could see like kind of how it's moving over here, and then the filter width is going to be right here. So now we could just kind of dial in our reverb. And the reason why I set up all these like racks is so I just noticed that I'm doing this on like every channel, and you just want to save as much time as you can. So this just helps you save a bunch of time in the writing process. And then last thing we'll set up is going to be this, the wet volume, because we want to be able to control how much reverb we have. So now it'll go. Yeah, so I'm going to keep it fairly wet for now, but this is just kind of how I set up all the macros and stuff. So now, probably going to want like a long reverb for this type of sound. And then from here, we could just kind of just dial in what we want. Yeah, so that's just how to set up like a simple like reverb send rack. All right, next one, what we're gonna do is, it's this channel strip rack. And I like to have this on literally every group in my arrangement, just so after I get like, I'll spend a lot of time just on the main drop or 8 bars. And then from there, I'll group everything together and then throw the channel strip rack on every group. And then arranging the song is just like 10 times faster. So I just have this, like some white noise playing just so you guys can, let's turn that down. So for this channel strip rack, we have a low cut. So that's just going to be an EQ, because you know generally you want to cut EQs out of most of your group, or you want to cut the lows out of most of your groups besides the kick and the bass. And then we have 2 auto filters. So we have a low pass and a high pass. So LPF, HPF. Then we're going to throw all these in here. And then after that, we have a washout. So we'll go washout. Let's put that back. We'll put this in our rack here. And actually, I'm just going to go one by one just so you guys kind of get the process. So let's go channel strip rack here. And then the key thing for the channel strip rack is you need to control the on and off switch for things, because if you have a low cut on something, it's going to mess with the phasing. So you want it to be completely off when you're not using it. And the way to set that up is you map it, the on off, to macro 1, and then you just do, if you click map, you could set the minimum maximum amounts that you want. So we want minimum to be, I think, 1 and then 0 here. And let's see. Yeah, so if you do that, when it's at 0, you could see this, the whole EQ8 is off. So that when we're not using it, we don't get the phasing issue. And then from here, we're going to do the low cut, and then we'll map this to macro 1 as well. So now, as soon as we start moving this up, it'll turn on, and then we could choose the frequency. So now we have a ton of control over cutting out the lows, and we'll just go low cut. And if you want to color them, just right click, and then you could change it right there. Okay, let's close that up because we got that figured out. So for the LPF, we're going to go map to macro 2, and then map again. And we're going to do device on 1, and then 0. And then we're going to map this to the frequency. So now what we have to do is reverse the polarity of the low pass so that we could start it at 0, and it'll, you see how it starts at the top right now? We want it to start at the bottom, or we want it, so as we pull this up, we're cutting out the highs. So all we have to do for that is go to right here and then just reverse the polarity on this. So now as we pull this up, it's going to pull the lows, or it's going to pull down the filter. So then we could just go LPF right here, LPF, and then for the high pass filter, same thing. So we're going to go boom, macro 3, high pass filter, and then reverse the polarity on it. So 1, 0. Now it's off when we start, and then we'll keep, oh, we have to turn this to high pass. And then we'll do map the frequency to high pass. And we don't need to reverse that because it's already set up how we want it. So now we could, and this is super useful for like your cymbals and stuff like that for the intro. So you could automate this, just having a little bit of the highs in, and then they come in like after another 8 bars or something like that. So after that, we'll close these up just for space. After that, we have a washout, and you could just do this for like an endless smile or something, whatever you like to use. And then now we just have, that's a super simple one to set up. Reverb throw, we're not going to worry about too much, but for the delay, we're going to go like this. And then we're just going to map the wet to 5. And then we'll do ping pong and kind of just set this up generally how it would work in an arrangement. And then for stuff like delay, you really don't want to go up too high on the dry wet, so you could just map this. And if you set the maximum over here to 50%, then you'll only ever get it up to 50% when you have this macro turned all the way up. So now, say we had like a vocal at the end of our drop, we could just go like this and automate this up. And it's just a super quick way to just finish up your idea as soon as you get it down. So let's go ahead and delete this. And then on top of that, we have a utility. So we'll throw that in there. And then we're going to do gain for this. So we'll go 6. And then generally when I'm turning things up, it'll only be like maximum 10. So we could set the minimum to 0 and then the maximum 10 because we don't want to fucking blast shit. So now if we ever need to turn anything up, we could just automate this up. And then the last thing, which I do on a lot of tracks, is this mute button. So say you have a vocal with like a bunch of reverb and delay on it, but you have like a cool fill sound that you have in the middle of your drop. A lot of the times what I'll do is, let's set this to minimum, maximum 1. So we'll do 0, 1. That should do it. Let's see. Oh, we have to invert this one as well. So we'll go 1, 0. So now say we had a bunch of reverb and delay and this is a vocal, but we have like a cool synth fill right here. Now what we could do is just boom, mute the whole thing right here. So if we have the delay going, let's go, this is the delay. And then say the delay is just on for this track. And let's turn the mute off just so we could hear it. So let's go like this. So now what we could do is just easily mute an entire group, if this was like your drum group, so that you could have whatever other sound you wanted to happen there without having to automate a bunch of different, like say you have 3 tracks with like reverb on them. Now you don't have to worry about automating 3 different reverbs. You could just turn on the mute right here. Boom. And yeah, that's about it for the channel strip rack. Let's see. All right, another cool one is, oh, and I guess it's kind of worth sharing like how I think of some of these. The channel strip isn't too complex, but sometimes I'll, just with the concept of AI, like it's making creative stuff just a lot easier, but there's a way to utilize it so that you can make shit easier on yourself without like getting lost in all that like AI stuff coming out. So what I'll do is sometimes I'll just sit there and pull up a notepad and I'll just try to think. I'll put into words like how to make my life easier when I'm producing. And then what I'll do is I will like redesign it. So inside of Ableton, let me try to think of a better way to explain it. So for instance, a concept that AI would be able to do is give you an unlimited amount of different iterations of like rhythm. So given that, I'll be like, okay, I need to make something that'll give me infinite possibilities for rhythmic options for a sound. So after I wrote that down, I was like, okay, so I need, this is an infinite LFO tool rack. And essentially what it is let's turn it. So I mapped every like popular iteration of rhythms, so like 30-second, 16 triplets and everything inside of an LFO tool. And then I mapped all the speed to right here, so I could change the speed of it. And then I have all these curve options. So and then I have a swing option. So this is just like another version of AutoPan, but with a lot more control. And the way to set this up is if you do, because like on an AutoPan, you can't really control the curve to a certain extent. And also there's no real swing on here without like getting super into the phase and stuff like that, which is just gonna be a hassle. So if you do an LFO tool, and then you group this, and let's just set this up to be like an envelope. So now we have, so now what we could do is we want to configure the swing, and then let's do this and this. A lot of people don't know that you could automate the curves inside of here. And for shits, let's just do all of these because we never know like what kind of result we're gonna get. So we'll do let's see, swing, phase, So I'm just right click and mapping these to macros over here. Curve one. So this one is sustain. And this one is attack. And then we also want to control this top knob, and it's just going to be X. And then we'll go macro 5, and this is going to be attack 2. So then we'll do attack curve, and then we'll just do regular attack for this. So now we have, and then from here, sorry if that's loud, let's turn this down. So from there, what we do is duplicate this as many times as you want, and then just change the speed on it. So this one will be quarter, and then whatever you want, half, 16, eighth, and then you would just go inside of the LFO tool and just change the rate right here. The reason why I do it like this is because there's a ton of rates inside of here. So it's kind of hard to map this in a way that makes sense if you were to just map the rate. So if we go in here, go to this one, go to 16 now. Let's get it. Boom. And then eighth, we'll go in here. And then now what we could do is, if we pull up the chain, you just have to give each of these their own chain. And then you map the chain selector to, let's go 8. And this, we'll just call this rate. And then we have to set the maximums for it. So if we just go close this up, and we go map right here, chain selector, we just want to go to, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So we just go 3 in the maximum, and then we'll get out of the map mode. So now it just goes just up to 3. And if you want to know what speed you're in, if you look at the bottom over here, it'll show you the speed. And then as we write, we could mess with the, so this just gives you like infinite control over, like if you had a pad sound, or if you had like a vocal with a bunch of reverb on it, then you could just control the envelope of it over time. All right. Let's move on to, let's make one from scratch here. So now I have just the preset that we worked on before. Oh, nothing set up here. So I'm just gonna make a rack that I could use for my synths. So I'm just gonna set up a simple preset here. Just go like this. Then we'll turn this up, or let's go, and then we'll go this. So this is like if we wanted a rack that we always are going to want to use to just mess with our whatever sound we add. So for dynamics, let's do an OTT. And then let's go map this. Let's go here, and then main things we're going to want is the amount. So let's get a little melody in here. So we'll just go. worry too much about making that sound good. So and then we have this that we can mess around with. And then we're probably going to want to sculpt more so what's going on in here. So let's do above. So let's pull this up just so we could hear what we're doing. And then I'm gonna do, so if we go below, then we have control of this. So I'm gonna go map to 2. And then this is how if it's something new that I haven't done before, this is how I set up my minimum and maximum. So if you put it at the bottom and then drag up the dB amount, this will give you like the bottom most that it'll go. And then if you pull it up and then drag it down, that'll give you like the maximum it'll go. So now we have a lot of control over the dynamics for that. And then let's do the same thing with the mids. So let's go 3 and then oh, and if I'm doing something that's kind of like sound designy, I'll throw a soft clip at the end just so I can never blow my ears up when I'm messing around. So it kind of sounds good no matter what I do with that one. So I'm just going to leave that as is. So we'll do mids, highs. So now I have control over the dynamics. And then another cool thing with OTT is we'll keep it kind of simple for now. So I know after that, I'm gonna want some sort of low cut control. So let's do this to that, low cut, and then we'll do map 1, 0. So now it turns on after we go past 0, and then we go map pro 4. And let's just make this a little bit less drastic. So now we have a little bit more control over this synth. And we'll just close that up, close that up. So now let's go, definitely gonna want some sort of reverb control here. So let's go reverb to 6, and then we'll go decay on 5. Reverb decay, reverb wet, reverb wet. And then we'll go delay. And then we'll do, let's do time. And then let's do wet. Turn this down a little bit. All right, so now if we're just messing around, and then every time we get a new synth, we could just throw this on there, and we have some just easy stuff to mess with so that we could get it dialed in as quick as we want. So let's go synth Rack. And I'm not going to throw this in the downloads because I want you guys to get the practice, because you got to know how to do it on your own or else it doesn't matter. So yeah, this is kind of how I would go through just setting up all these different racks and stuff like that. It is super helpful to just have a session where you just write like 15 notes of like what you want to do in your music or how you would make your life easier. And then from there, I would take those ideas and go back and try to make the rack based off that. And hopefully you guys can speed up your workflow with these, and catch you guys next time. Peace.